The major differences are the complexity of the contracts. The financing looks a little bit different and the conditions look a little bit different. So in terms of the complexity of a residential contract, it's pretty straightforward. It's an area contract that most people use unless it's a private transaction and no realtors are involved, where it's all in plain English, pretty straightforward. But when you go to buy a commercial property, there's all sorts of stuff going on in there. There's the zoning uses, are there tenants that you're inheriting as you buy this property? Like there's so many more moving pieces. The purchase price is usually a lot higher than a residential house. Another big difference between residential and commercial contracts is the conditions. So typically in a residential contract, you have two or three main conditions. So you've got your financing condition, you've got your home inspection condition, and then if you're buying a condo, you've got your condo document review condition. And those three are standard. They're the ones we see most often. With a commercial contract, though, you have a lot more conditions. You've got to do all of your due diligence. You've got to make sure that, if it's an investment property, that you've got the rent roll and you've got those assignments of leases, that you're reading those leases to make sure you know exactly what kind of tenants you're getting. You're going to want to do an environmental assessment to make sure that the land isn't contaminated. You're going to want to do a zoning bylaw check to make sure that it's zoned, the property is zoned for what you want to use it for. If you're going to buy a property and right now it's a multifamily and it's zoned for multifamily and you're like, I want to tear this down and make it a car wash, you're going to have some issues. So the due diligence is a lot more intensive. The conditions are a bit more intense with respect to commercial properties. And lastly, the financing. In a residential contract, usually these are mortgages. It's coming from a bank, it's coming from a lender. It's pretty straightforward. It's backed by credit, your income, your employment status. When you are purchasing a commercial transaction, it's a lot more asset-based. So you are going to look at the assets that the corporation holds. It's not so much personal credit and is this person employed? It's what can they offer if things go sideways. And these mortgages aren't as traditional. There are commercial mortgages that are a bit more detailed than a traditional residential mortgage, but there might also be angel investors. There might be vendor take-back financing. There might be a joint venture. Maybe you've got a private investor that's leaning into this transaction. So there are a lot of differences between the contracts. And sometimes when you're buying a commercial or a residential property, you're going to use a private contract if realtors aren't involved, and those can always get messy. So you want to make sure that you bring that to your lawyer before you sign it, but also just use a realtor because they also know what these contracts look like and what is important about them.